the best set of actions in the world is great, but if this is your first time using Photoshop actions, then you're probably going to be a little confused about how to even go about using the actions at all. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some basics of what actions are and how they work. First of all, what are actions? Actions are sort of like a list of things that you want Photoshop to do. It's like a honey-do list or a recipe for baking brownies, something along those lines. So imagine it as a set of steps that you say, do this, and it'll go through and dutifully do all of them in order. Won't bitch at you, won't give you any lip. Pretty simple, right? All of your actions live together on the right-hand side of the screen in the Actions palette. You can think of this as Action Land, and you can think of yourself as the mayor of Action Land if you want to. You get to tell your actions what to do, where to do it, when to do it, who they can live with. In fact, it sounds a little bit more like it's a totalitarian regime than a nice little city, so you get to be the dictator of Action Stan, I guess. In any case, your actions live together in little houses called action sets. Now typically, the actions living together in an action set are family. They're related in some way or another. They'll all be black and white actions, all actions that are related to workflow or something similar. In fact, that's how the Totally Rad action set is organized. You have Caffeine Jolt, which is your actions for enhancing color images. You have Daily Grind, which is your workflow actions. Colorblind, which are going to be all black and white oriented. And Retouch, which is a Lonely Hermit, because that's the only action you need for that, which is our retouching action. If you click on the arrow to the left of an action set, then you can open it up and see all of the little subjects of your dictatorial action regime. Click on the left of those arrows, and if you want, you can play Doctor. You get to see all the little steps and all the things that go inside of the actions, but unless you're a licensed MD, I wouldn't go messing around in there. It's not like the game Operation. Won't just scream at you. If you make a mistake, you might end up grafting a leg onto a head. Best to just leave all that stuff in there alone altogether. If you really wanted to get crazy, you could open up each one of those steps in the action and see what the parameters for each step that are programmed into the action are. If you really feel like delving into our action set and learning a lot about how they work, this is a good place to start. Running an action is just as simple as clicking on the action that you want and clicking on the play button down at the bottom of the Actions palette. Photoshop will then dutifully run through every step in the action without complaining, and when it's done, it'll exit and give control back to you. Now, don't mess with the actions while they're already running. It's hard enough on them that you make them work for a bowl of rice a day. If you give them emotional burdens on top of that by telling them that what they're doing isn't right or that you want them to do two things at once, you're going to confuse them and piss them off, and they're going to be like, why isn't it good enough that I'm already doing everything you ask in order perfectly without bitching about it? Leave them alone. Let the actions run through to their completion. It'll avoid psychological trauma and keep them from having little action uprisings where they get pitchforks and storm the Bastille. All of that. You'll notice next to each action or action set there are a couple of boxes. One of them should have a black check mark in it, the other one should be totally empty. Leave them that way. The black check box is going to make sure that it runs every step in the action, and the other box, when empty, is going to not prompt you for any input. Unless you want things to take a long time or not end up the way they're expected to be, leave them exactly like that. One with the black check, and one of them totally empty. Better yet, just put everything into button mode. That way you won't screw anything up on accident. Best way to do this is simply go up to the Actions palette menu and click on that first item, Button Mode. While in Button Mode, all you need to do to run an action is click on its name. This saves you one click per run of the action, and therefore that many clicks over the years till your wrist collapses from carpal tunnel syndrome. So it's a good idea if for no other reason than just to save you medical bills. The other thing you'll notice is that you get color-coded actions while in Button Mode. The Totally Rad action mix comes pre-assigned with colors based on the group that the action is a part of. So Colorblind, Caffeine Jolt, Daily Grind, and Retouch will all have their own groups of colors. Pretty cool, huh? Helps you keep things organized. The other thing you'll notice is that the actions will take up slightly more efficient use of your screen real estate. If you resize the Actions palette to be larger or smaller, then eventually the Actions palette will break itself up into columns as well as rows, which if you have a lot of room on your screen can save you a little bit of room and make things more efficient. If you want to be even more awesome, assign your most commonly used actions to F keys. That way, you don't even need to click on the mouse to use them. All you need to do is click on one of the F keys up at the top of your keyboard and your action will automatically run. To do that, make sure you're not in button mode, and if you are, get out. Then click the action that you want to assign to an F key and go up again to that Actions palette menu click on Action Options, and then you'll see a little dialog open that gives you the option to assign the action to an F key, change its name, change its color. Pretty cool, huh? The other thing you'll notice is that you can also assign an action to a combination of an F key plus either Control/Command or Shift. This allows you to assign up to 4 actions per F key, theoretically, which gives you that many more keys to play with. Sometimes even good actions can go bad.
Really bad.
There are a few things that can happen along the way to turn your loyal, hardworking subjects into dissident, rebellious, political revolutionaries, and you don't want to have to put down a rebellion on your hands in action land. Your first clue that something is wrong is that you'll run an action and everything will look all f***ed up. If this is you, first thing to check is to make sure that those checkboxes that I discussed earlier are in the state I mentioned. In other words, black check in one, empty next to the other. If that's all fine and dandy, the next thing to check is to make sure that your image that you're working on is in 8-bit RGB mode. This is important because some of the filters that we use in the actions only work on 8-bit images. So if you see the message, the command spherize is not available, for instance, then you know that, oh, I'm running this on a 16-bit image. Convert it to 8-bit and try again. Should fix your problem. RGB is important because the actions have to make certain assumptions about what kind of document you're working on. So if you have a grayscale image, CMYK, lab, XYZ, whatever goofy-ass format that you're editing in, the actions aren't going to run. Don't try it. 8-bit RGB only. The best way to think about this is to imagine that your actions are sort of like a washing machine and you want to run your clothes through them and get them clean, white or whites, get the spaghetti stain off your shirt. You're not going to go put bubble bath in that, are you? No. Likewise, you're not going to put your clothes in your dishwasher unless your washing machine's broken or you're ghetto. Just stick to doing what the actions do best. 8-bit RGB images only. The last thing to make sure of is that the actions you're working on are high resolution. By this I mean at least 3,000 pixels on the long end, give or take. If you're trying to run the actions on a web size image, you're going to get goofy, unpredictable results out of the whole process because some of the values, again, in the actions are hard-coded based on working on full-res DSLR images. So don't try them on web-size images, with the exception of Sharpen for Web. That's the only one that's meant to work on web size. Everything else, work on high-res images, and then downsize later for your web applications. As always, if you find yourself at the end of the process just scratching your head and saying, that doesn't work still, give us an email, give us a shout, we'll help you out in any way that we can.